Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, former Vanderbilt Athletic Department employee Tommy Smith. Tommy, of course, did part one earlier in the week with us. This is a follow-up part two, which includes audience questions. Today's news is sponsored by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, call Taylor or Russell at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Well, we are still waiting on the SEC's decision about football. The Big Ten and Pac-12 have opted out. The Big 12 is in. The ACC and the SEC seem inclined at least to leave open the possibility of playing. Of course, by the time this airs, that could have changed. You never know. But in any case, that is where things are as we record this podcast on Wednesday morning. Our guest line is presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I had no clue how comfortable sheets could be until I got them. From Boll & Branch, they are fair trade certified, meaning they are made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. Try them free for a month. You can return them, but you won't want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted the best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That's spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Tommy Smith joins me for a part two, and at the rate we're going, there may be a part three. We will wait and see. But Tommy, the first podcast we did was very enlightening. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. A lot of folks appreciated you coming on and your candor. I want to thank you for joining us on behalf of a lot of people. Glad you're feeling better. You're out of the hospital, so I know a lot of folks were concerned about that. But anyway, the first one was great. I'm looking forward to a second part, and I'm happy that you are doing better.
Thank you. I'm actually still in the hospital, but thank you. I'm here to speak candidly. I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus or spill any trade secrets. I'll talk about my opinions and experiences and whatnot, and more than happy to be a very open book, but not personal towards anyone because I don't believe in that. But that's what I'm here for, and I'm going to answer the questions.
Well, I guess I spoke prematurely. I think you're on your way out of the hospital soon, hopefully.
I'm hoping to be home today. I thought I was going home yesterday, so I'm laying into bed.
Well, in any case, thank you for joining us again. We have some topics that I did not get to in the first one that I want to get into before we get into fan questions. And I may break this off, depending on the length, into a third part with some of those questions from listeners. But just I want to get that clear on the front end in case we cut this short. But let's get into some stuff that we didn't get into. I know one of the big things when Malcolm left or when he was being pushed out, or however we would like to phrase that, we'll get to that part in a minute, was the offices. And I think one of the things that I learned after he was gone was that his office renovation, which was part of a lot of the criticism about him, two things about it. One, I think it was paid for by the university from their budget. And secondly, I think that was part of a much bigger project with branding within that building, but I will let you explain that.
I think that's right. It's my understanding that this is just my understanding. I wasn't involved in it. That it was paid for through the chancellor's office, and it was a larger branding. It allowed me to have a spot to hang my hat during the day, even though I don't sit behind a desk. And I don't know why having a nice office complex is a boogeyman. It's commensurate with a Power 5 Division I athletic director and vice chancellor, where you can bring families in and have meetings and whatnot. I do think it's a larger part of a better branding, and I don't understand why that's a story at all. Every office in Kirkland is big and spacious and looks good, as it should be. So why athletics shouldn't have the same is something I don't understand.
So basically, they were just trying to bring this up to the standards of the other leadership elements of the school.
Well, that would be my interpretation, but I think it should be. I think this isn't fancy. You know, you're a Division I athletic director, and you want to be the best of the best. We're not talking. There's not a wine bar in there. I don't think it was. In my opinion, I think it should have been done and look nicer and present an image that is overall the same image that the school has in other departments.
Was the price tag for all that justified, in your opinion?
I have no idea what it was. I don't, but my stance would be, I don't know what it cost. I don't think it was anything spectacular. I cannot speak. I've never seen a bill, but that's not the issue. The issue is the standards that you have, and the look you want to have, and the brand you want to have. And I don't think it was wasted by any chance. If it was if it cost too much, somebody charged them too much. That's their fault.
I know that a lot of things were done sort of behind the scenes in Malcolm Turner's tenure there. I know that the scoreboard for basketball, the ribbon board, was something that was brought up to me after he was let go, or again, resigned, let go. We'll get into that later. Bathrooms, I think, were another issue. Tell folks about some of the spending and where it went that maybe people didn't know at the time he was let go.
Well, I can't use I'm not going to use the word spending. I'm going to use the word investments. Now, I don't know what any of this costs. I got there, I didn't get there when he did, but certainly tried to catch up and help where I could. It's my understanding the football scoreboard was outdated, didn't work half the time. They couldn't bring recruits on the stadium because they didn't know if it was going to work. The bathrooms were filthy. Why that's considered spending and not an investment. I've had several people compliment that done. They go to baseball games, specifically some of our female fans who had some sanitized bathrooms to go on that side of Dudley Stadium over there. I don't understand why that's a criticism, especially for those who've been in the football field and seen them. Those were redone. Staff locker rooms in McGugin, which looked like they were from a high school in Nashville from the mid 70s, were redone. Nothing major, just the McCall room was redone. You can bring folks in there and have high level meetings. It was none of this is fancy. You got to understand that none of this is fancy. It was needed. Same thing with the Kirkland, the Hendricks room. I don't know what it looked like before, but it was completely redone. And so I prefer the word investments. I know he moved up the turf installment for baseball a year, which I think is great. I think it was already approved and it did it. So I just don't understand how people can criticize investments. They say spending. I think that most people would say that's what Vanderbilt has not done in their athletic department. And I think it's a false narrative.
Well, one of the stories I got, and this may have been from the Luke Wyatt podcast that I did a few months ago, they had a toilet leaking, I think, somewhere in one of the football stadium bathrooms that hadn't been fixed for years. And so that took spending, but it was also saving the school money. I mean, I just wonder how many things like that were out there.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I know the bathrooms were redone in McGugin, and I don't know about that, but it doesn't surprise me. I think you mentioned the air conditioner was broke over in the weight room. So that doesn't surprise me at all. I found a lot of things like that.
Well, and I think one of the things that went unsaid at the time that Malcolm got let go, and look, I was critical of Malcolm when he was let go, but you come to find out more of the facts and their explanations for some of the things. And one of the big things that stood out to me was he was given permission to do this. Now, the issues came when Chancellor Nick Zeppos left and Susan Wente took over in the interim, but originally he was given charge and carte blanche to fix all this stuff.
Well, I've never had those discussions, but I think my sense tells me you're right. He didn't have a credit card to go out and just do stuff. And I think that's what he was hired to do is my interpretation. And all of a sudden those went from investments to wasteful spending in some people's eyes. And I think that's exactly right. I think he, instead of saying F you to him, I ought to be saying thank you, because a lot of these things should have been done years ago. Were mistakes made? I'm sure they were. I'm sure I made mistakes. But I know this much. We wanted to raise the standards, the visibility, the brand, all those things. And that, I don't think that's been addressed in years and years.
The car service that he had was a big point of contention. I know the story about him going to Memphis to interview Jerry Stackhouse, hiring a car to come back. I mean, some of that, yes, probably there should have been more discretion there. But I think there was also a situation where maybe he and his wife had one car and maybe the car service had been approved. I don't know if you know much about that, but what can you tell me there?
No, I don't. But on the wife thing, I don't have any idea. But I will say this: in terms of a car service, I used them at the NBA all the time, and it's a different level. I get that, but the reason you use a car service is you can work while you're in the car. You know, you can do, I came an environment where I was getting 300 to 400 emails a day, and I'd be on the road, and it was very vital. And I find that silly. I don't know anything about Jessica using a car. If they were doing something they didn't want them to do, just tell them stop. We don't want you to do this. It's not real hard. I don't think there's anything nefarious there. Matter of fact, I'm sure there's not. But you think Nick Saban drives himself to Birmingham, or do you think he's working in a car? You know, that's that. I think that's almost silly. It's not wasteful. We took a car down to the SEC tournament in Birmingham because of the work, and I and he and we came from a different pace. You know, pace was different. I think some people there, they're just not familiar with that type of pace. And if you want to get to that standard, you got to do that thing. I'm not saying they don't work hard. I'm certainly not saying that. But what I am saying is they have no idea the difference. So to me, that's silly. Worrying about a car service is not going to help you beat South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
The consultant piece was a big issue. I think I was told he had as many as 6 for different things. What do you know about that?
There were some there. They were needed. I wasn't involved in hiring them. There may have been one I may have thought, I'm not sure we need this one, but so what? If you make that's his decision. You back your people. I did have several of them, we'll say several, come back to me and indicate that they didn't think the people they were working with understood what they brought to the table. I know exactly where they were coming from. It's like one was that I knew I recommended, did work all over the world, would have been so beneficial. And it's almost like showing up in Mayberry with a Giorgio Armani suit. Some of you think, wow, how did I get one of those? And 3/4 of them look at you like you're a clown. They just don't know. And I was going to try to teach them this is the sophistication that needs to be here. So in terms of that, I think that's noise. I think some of it was, it's my understanding that this is what was, do this and do that. So I don't think that's an issue. You could always second guess. You could second guess what play was called. Did we need all of them? Maybe, maybe not. But I think McGugin overall is probably understaffed anyway and lacking an overall sophistication of what greatness is about.
Well, and that's one thing I thought too is if he needs all these consultants, what does that say about the people that he inherited in the athletic department that they didn't know enough where they could have helped him with those things?
That's a fair question. It's a very fair analogy. I'd always heard before I got there that the culture in McGugin was awful. That's always heard awful, and it's somewhere in between. When I got there, I could see that part. But there's also people, and some were just like flowers waiting to grow and be taught and led and pushed, and others I can see where that culture would be awful because they went looking. If something was, the pace was going to be different, the accountability was going to be different, and they would go to other folks, and those types of folks, they don't know how. You got to teach them. They look for one or two things: support or illumination. And several of them looked for support, which means that I'm a victim here. And you find, and start looking for sympathy. And others were ready to just jump out of there and get going. So, and I know how Malcolm works. I've been there. He takes his time. He's a shy person. He gives you a chance to succeed. After about 8 or 9 months, he knows what he's got to do, but I don't think it ever got to that. But I think what you said, there's some truth to that.
Let's talk about when he left. It's been described as a firing by some. It's been described as a resignation by others. Like most things, those get complicated. What do you know that happened there, and why, in your opinion, is he no longer there?
I have no idea. I've never asked him what happened at the end, and so that's number one. My speculation is they don't really want change. I think, in my estimation, you should. These are just my philosophies. You hire somebody to do the job, and you give them the resources, and you take their expertise. You don't hire somebody to tell them how to do the job. And I think that's basically what it comes down to. They resisted change.
What really stood out to me, the narrative and the way the whole thing went down was just fascinating because, and I wrote a story about this called True Statements of Truth in the Vanderbilt Way that I think was on, and it ended up being really prophetic. I do think that they had things that if they wanted to get rid of Malcolm, they could have used to do that. And I don't know the whole story. There may be a smoking gun out there that I don't know about. So I will offer that with full disclosure. But the more I looked into it, I think that they could dismiss a whole lot of people there for the reasons that they dismissed him for that I know about. In my mind, it sure looks to me like, okay, these are the reasons we're going to use to get rid of you. But the real reason was you were doing your job and you were pushing a lot of folks. And I don't think that they really wanted that. Is that a fair characterization or is it not?
I don't, I think so. I don't know. Like I said, I can't speak to what happened. I don't know. And if I probably did, I probably wouldn't anyway, because I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus. But I do know this. I think they rejected change. It's pretty obvious. And while I was there, a lot of times I would hear the word, that's not how Vanderbilt does it. Well, I'm not interested in how somebody does. I'm interested in doing the right thing and what the goals and dreams are. So I think it goes back that they want it done a certain way. And I'll say this: administrators control, leaders inspire and motivate, and they have a right to do that. That's fine. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I don't. I think I have a different viewpoint on how they should do things towards their athletic programs and what it could bring for them.
You knew Candace Lee, you worked with her. Do you think things changed with her in charge?
That's a great question. No, I don't think you can expect change when, first off, Candace is a lovely young lady. I like her a lot. Husband, Sean, is a nice man. Her son, Andrew's a delightful guy. So, if people disagree with something she's doing, that's fine. They ought to be nice about it. And if you should support her as the AD there. It's the only place she's ever been. She's went to school there, played there, and that's what they want. So, but I do think you can't say we're changing and with what you've done. You can't do that. I have a different philosophy on that. But you got to support her if you're either in or not. In or not, but I do think if you're in, you expect change. You're probably not thinking clearly. But I will say I like her. She's a good girl. I don't think she understands the total change that needs to be done there because she's never been anywhere else. But that's not right or wrong. That's just the facts.
Where did you guys find her helpful in what you tried to do?
Oh, that's a hard question. She was always very nice to me. I didn't work with her, a lot. Spent a lot of time with her. I liked her. I think she knew how Vanderbilt worked and what the Vanderbilt way, so to speak. She definitely knew that. And I'm almost at the point. Well, you could almost make the case we should do everything exact opposite because it ain't, in my view, it hasn't worked the way I think it should work. But she was fine. I know she'll do the best she can there, and I think that's what Vanderbilt wants. They want somebody that falls in lines of what they want, and she shouldn't be criticized when people say she's doing what Kirkland wants. That's what they want. And that's her boss. That's unfair to criticize her for that. I think myself, I'm a little more outgoing about no, there's a better way to do it. I don't question authority may not be the right word because I'm a respectful man, but I don't need, if you hire me, don't hire me and tell me what to do. I'm not into that. If you're going to hire me, I'm going to tell you what you need, and then we'll decide if you want to do it or not.
Did it make a statement to you that they stuck with establishment in making her the permanent replacement? Because they said they were going to look outside for someone else. They didn't. And again, you come off an environment where your boss and you were trying to change some things. You met resistance at every turn. And some of the same people that were giving you resistance were the same people that made that decision. I mean, I have to think that's not coincidental.
Well, you certainly can't say they're changing things now. I mean, it's all verbal, it's not tangible. So I think that's right. I think the basic strategy they want to go is going to be the same, and that's fine. This is a continuation of what they've had for 20 years. So that's anybody says otherwise is just probably ought to be in Washington D.C. where they look you right in the face and spin something it's not accurate. And I'm not suggesting that's wrong or right, but I'm telling you that's what it is.
The Jared Pinkney story made a lot of headlines this year. And by that, I mean, that's where it was said that I think Bill Belichick or someone from the Patriots told him that he had a losing mentality with the answers that he gave the Patriots in the interview. Pinkney was a preseason All-American tight end last year, had a poor year, didn't get drafted. What do you think that says about the culture in and around Vanderbilt athletics and football?
Oh, I think it says a lot. I don't think it says anything to any particular person, but I think it says a ton. It speaks for itself.
Before I get into the mailbag, I know you spent a lot of time in the NBA. I just wondered if you had any interesting stories or things with that that people might want to hear or might be applicable to the situation over at Vandy.
That's a great question. The NBA is the greatest place in the world to work for. The pace is so greater than what you have at Vanderbilt in terms of the daily grind. You're sprinting all day and you get used to it. I've always had a philosophy: you treat employees to be like ballerinas, comfortable on their toes. I would tell one story. I was in the marketing division, help teams revenue generation and whatnot, and we were having tons of issues with the G League owners at the time, and the independent owners, some NBA owners. It was not going well, and it always seemed to, because I visited the teams all the time, I always got dragged in. So my boss, Chris Granger, who now running the Tigers and the Detroit Red Wings, used to run Sacramento Kings, he calls me in and they want me to be more involved. We go see Adam. They want me to be more involved. Then would see Commissioner Silver, deputy commissioner at the time. They want me to be more involved in the G League and be as a little bit of a sounding board because I had a little more experience. But I was still working for Chris. So Chris tells me, and I'd meet with him all the time and keep him updated because he's got 30 billionaires at the NBA he's worried about. And he tells me I've got carte blanche to go see Adam anytime I want. Now, not folks who don't know that level or hadn't been there, you have no idea the time constraints. I had two owners meet with Commissioner Stern, rest his soul, and they met with him one morning and they told me they wanted to go to dinner with him that night. And he said, well, is it on the calendar? They said no. He said, well, I'm booked for 4 months. It's mind boggling. So anyway, I wait a year and a half to go see Adam. I walk in, see him. I got 15 minutes with him. And he had told me I had carte blanche to come anytime, and it's hard to get that. So I walked in, I said hello to him. I call him Mr. Adam. He calls me Mr. Tommy. And I said, we sat down. I said, Mr. Adam, I've got good to see you and exchange pleasantries. And so I got some ideas for you. But I said, I really want there to be 2 rules for this meeting. He looked at me kind of laughing. I'm not telling him what to do, but he knew. And I said, one of them is if I say something stupid, you won't throw me out the 15th window floor. And he laughed and said, of course, which I knew he would. And I said, but there's 2 reasons for that. So one of them is when I leave here, I got to call my mom and dad and tell them how this went. They know I'm in here and I don't want to start him hauling around. They say, you didn't make that man mad. And he laughed. He understood it. And I said, there's some humor in that, but it's 100% true. But I said, the second is I cannot and will not tell you what you want to hear. I said, I wasn't raised that way. I can't do it. I won't do it. I'm saying the same thing I did when I deal with these owners. You let me tell you what I think. And I said, at the end of this meeting, if you think I'm stupid, I'm fine. You can fire me and we'll hug and say goodbye. I'm okay with that. You have a right to know that. Because there's so much, people say what you want to hear. It's ridiculous. And I remember him thanking me for that. And I was in there for an hour and a half for a 15-minute meeting. And when I left, he thanked me. He said, you've helped me so much. And my point is this, you gotta think what you say, not what somebody wants to hear. And if you're working in an environment where they don't want to hear what you think, then it's about control and it's not about expanding your mind and getting better ideas. So I've always liked that story because it illustrates that you need to collaboration is listening, not dictating.
You worked in the NBA. How many years was it?
I think 14 or 13. I can't remember.
So you actually worked in college sports longer than you did the NBA.
Yes. I coached in college and have done a lot in college space.
Let's do the mailbag if you're cool with that.
Sure.
Our mailbag is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan Josh Minton, an independent insurance agent operating on Brentwood. Josh can take care of all your insurance needs. Call him today, 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Twitter at JoshuaMintonHQ, at Facebook.com/JDMintonHQ. He is my insurance agent. Give him a try. Tell him you heard about it here. One Star Bandit said, what was Mr. Turner's long-term plans for improvements to athletics, and specifically what were we looking at that was covered by the reported $400 to $500 million funding needs? I think actually $800 million was the estimate that I had heard. I think that's what you were familiar with too. That may come up in the next question too, but let me let you answer this one first.
I don't want to speak to any specific numbers, but and it's certainly no secret, we were looking at all facilities. How do you upgrade? Went around the country, not near as much as we really need. Looking at different venues that have been improved on how to do it. But I think they're all behind. Other than baseball, I think facilities are not up to SEC standards at all. And Memorial Gym is good. You can win in basketball now, but it needs you need some things over there. So everything in my mind was on the table. I was looking at everything, and I don't want to get into any price tags. I don't want to divulge any inside information or anything like that. But those are investments. That's not spending. Those are investments in your student athletes and your fans and your brand. And I think they need those all across the board. It's soccer, lacrosse play in the same field. One needs turf, one needs grass. I think the tennis courts has 5 courts. The indoor football stadium or practice field, the end zone is cut in half, and it's about 300 yards from where they dress, where you're going in there, so you don't have to go outside if it's raining and lightning. So I just don't. I think there's a lot of things that needed to be upgraded.
I'd heard talk at one point about the football stadium being relocated to the hospital parking lot. Did you have any experience with discussions on that?
No, there was a lot of discussions, and some you discuss just like an NBA general manager. I've talked. I know all these guys can say something. Hey, would you trade me so and so? And then next thing you know, somebody leaks so and so is trying to trade their best player, and all the drama starts. So there's a lot of discussions. Not to say it wasn't real, but you should look under everything. I don't specifically remember that one, but I know this. We asked a lot of questions.
Ann Arbor Door says, were the peer institutions in comparison to large state schools or other smaller private schools like Northwestern, Duke, or Stanford?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Oh, well, I think it's because I left part of it off because it was playing off the previous one. The question was basically, when you did facilities comparisons and things like that, were they to peer institutions like the privates, or were they to other schools also?
It would end up being both, but starting out, some of the private peer institutions and would have looked at more.
How far were you behind places like Northwestern, Duke, and Stanford?
Dramatically.
What is the difference between those schools and Vanderbilt? Because those schools seem to understand that you can do those things, that they don't hurt your brand. In fact, those schools are all, I think, higher in the academic rankings than Vanderbilt. That's the thing that people have a difficult time making sense of.
Yeah, you'd have to ask somebody else that, but I'll say this. I use this example. Andrew Luck goes from Houston, Texas to Stanford. Bryce Love goes from North Carolina to Stanford, and Christian McCaffrey goes from Colorado to Stanford. They're not going because the degree's any better. It's comparable. Maybe it's a little better, a little worse. I don't know, but that's not negligible. They're not going because it's a better conference. It's not even close. Palo Alto is not a better city than Nashville. It's not even close. They won't come here because you can't even recruit them because the facilities are not modern where you can develop. And there's this notion of Vanderbilt, the athletes have to be ingrained with the university. I don't know what that means. You go to college to expand your mind, chase your dreams and vision, find yourself. Why somebody in Kirkland needs to tell you how to do that is beyond me. And you can go out there and you can be free. You can learn yourself. I just philosophically, I don't understand that one. And you could get athletes all over the country if they had that facilities. That's why I just named those 3 guys. I use those in a lot of meetings. You could recruit against anybody in the country if you did it right. And you come there, I don't think anybody's ever force-fed a law major to hang out, get ingrained with the athletics. So why is it the other way around? All these students hang around each other anyway. They have their practice and study and things, and athletes have their practice. So I don't get that they have to be ingrained in the student body. They are students. And it's not for me or anybody else to tell them that. Let people chase their own dream and vision and learn who they want to be and what role in life they want to go and those things. I think that's the difference again of an administrator controlling versus a leader inspiring.
Where I find them so disingenuous is every time facilities come up, they talk about redirecting it back to the student athlete focus, and that's the priority. Well, I'll tell you, you dig in there, and that's horrible. We've talked about the nutrition. I don't think people have any clue how big of a deal that is. The stories that I've gotten on that, which I'm not at liberty to share, are alarming. There are many other issues that play off that, but they like to sit up there and act noble that they won't spend money on this or won't spend money on the stadium because it doesn't affect the students and their experience. They're full of it, because the more that you dig in on things of where they serve their students, they're not serving their students. I just think the whole thing strikes me as a shell game.
Well, I'll say the needs of different constituencies are different. It's not one size fits all. The needs are different. And, the discussion is always about athletics. Well, I don't understand. They're student athletes, and you're in the greatest city in the country, and the track record is not good. And I don't think I'm not suggesting any personal biases to anybody or anything like that. They don't understand, and you can't sit around and tell yourself how great you are. You can't talk about greatness. You got to show it. You got to do it. And let somebody else tell you how great you are. I look at Alabama, who I follow closely, and they had Michael Jordan in to speak to the team last night. They've had Mike Tyson, Condoleezza Rice. Is anybody down there saying these speakers have to go speak to the law library? No. Why would they? They can do that. So I don't understand why it's always towards athletics. And these kids are not dumb. They're coming there to get educated, and you don't not judge, but to be educated. Just because somebody doesn't like an athlete, that's their problem. If the athletic department complains about the faculty, which had happened to me one day, I told them, don't ever do it to me again. And I'm not disrespectful, but I'm not afraid to call somebody out and say, no, we're not doing that. So those things have to be done that way. Okay. They have to be done that way. I don't understand it. I don't understand why that's considered favorable treatment. Those things should be going on.
One Star Bandit wants to know if there were any projects close to being started.
I don't think so. But I've been gone since February, so now you're in this pandemic. But I don't. Is there a shovel in the ground going on? I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
The locker room was supposed to be the first, but that's been put off from what I understand.
Well, you got lockers that have been there since the mid 80s. So do I need to say anything else?
I think that kind of sums it up. Dorking says, did you have much contact with Derek Mason? What were your impressions? What are his strengths and weaknesses? Can he improve the program?
I did. I liked him. I'll speak on when people want to evaluate the football coach at Vanderbilt, and now it's Coach Mason. He's always very kind and good. I think he's a good man, good family. You can't evaluate somebody when it's not a fair fight. And I've said that. Go back to 1967 and Google Vanderbilt football coaches. There's a massive amount of data of what's gone on. And he's those guys. I used to get in there every day about 4:30 and work out and would shower in the coach's locker room. Football, they let me come down there because ours were being fixed. Nice guys. They work hard. It's not a fair fight. You cannot evaluate a coach at Vanderbilt football on wins and losses without the proper resources to give him a chance. So from that standpoint, I stand by that. And I think back, I'm 61 years old. I've been to games there my whole life and been around. Bill Pace, Rod Dowhauer, Fred Pankos, Watson Brown. I could go on and on and on and on. And two of them have got out of there alive. Steve Sloan after 2 years and James Franklin after 3. So the data is right there in front of you. It's about resources and can you be competitive? And if anybody says otherwise, they got their head in the sand.
Chester Copperpot says, how close was Malcolm to firing Mason? Did Kirkland stop Turner from firing Mason? And if so, why?
No, I don't. To my knowledge, not even close. And I don't think Kirkland ever said a word. No.
Yeah,
It was my recommendation, my talks with him. Yeah, you can always fire the coach and then come back here 5 years later, you're going to do the same thing. My thing was, this is not about who's running the program. It's about facilities. You cannot evaluate somebody in a 100-yard dash when they're starting from the back of the end zone. Everybody else is starting at the goal line and say he's not as fast as them. Well, he's running farther. So, no, to my knowledge, there was never any discussion about that, and nor should there have been.
Yeah, I had a little bit of different intelligence on that was a consideration, but your point was that it really didn't matter because whoever the coach wasn't going to be set up to succeed anyway.
I think the focus should be, are the resources there to be successful? I think that's what and I don't mean just in wins and losses. It's a big part. It's why you play the game. I mean in terms of the development of the student athletes, sports science, health and medicine, nutrition, training. Are you doing those things? That's what I wanted to do.
I was told that you guys really use that strategically as an opportunity to push for more facilities. And you're right, those are needed for all the reasons we've been over to. Did you find Candace helpful in that push to push the school?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Well, I don't know about pushing the school. I wouldn't say she's as athletic minded as I am in terms of what's needed over there, because I talk about winning. I'm not, you know, I'm in a mindset there to try to make somebody in Kirkland happy. I don't even know half of them. I came here to look at it and do what's right. So in my mind, she certainly wasn't hurtful, not at all. But like I say, she's a lovely young lady. But I'm there. This is what you need. This is the SEC. There's a win-loss record. It's the SEC. It's the best conference in the country. There's a massive amount of improvements that need to be made, and there's a massive amount of benefits that will come from that. Now, if they choose not to do that, that's fine. But you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. That's my thing. When you take over something as a coach, you look at who. If I get hired as a baseball coach in the SEC, I'm looking at one program, Vanderbilt. What do I got to do to compete with them? I'm not worried about anybody else. I don't care, because if I can compete with Vanderbilt, I'll beat everybody else. That's how I look at it. That's your measuring stick.
King wants to know, were you and Malcolm Turner personally involved with finding and hiring the football program's offensive and defensive coordinators, Todd Fitch and Ted Roof? Did Malcolm insist that Mason make the coordinator changes? Did Malcolm have a formal or informal football consultant who provided advice on this?
No, not to my knowledge. Malcolm Turner is not a micromanager. He knows what he doesn't know. He would not say hire this offense coordinator, to my knowledge. No.
Yeah, I've had a source that told me Malcolm had some input on that.
Well, I'm sure there were some discussions, as he should, but I've never seen him do that, out of his wheelhouse. He knows what he doesn't know. And in terms of what you're going to pay him and this and that, I'm obviously being involved in those discussions. But no, I would be shocked. To my knowledge, that would not have happened.
King says, do the people in power value athletics?
Oh, I can't answer that. I don't think I think you've got some folks over there that don't understand and don't realize the role. And this is just my opinions, may be so worried about looking like they're favoring athletics that they actually discriminate against them. And to that question, look back at the history, look at what you've got. So, I can't speak for how anybody really feels about it, but to me, it's pretty plain. There's a different way of doing it. Winning's not bad. Winning doesn't mean you're bad. Doesn't mean you're cheating. You shouldn't cheat. Doesn't mean you got dummies out there. You shouldn't. It can. I think athletics could shine a light on that place like it's never been done before, and maybe some people are worried about that.
Papa Hick 4VU says, simply put, in your opinion, is there any hope for Vanderbilt athletics with the current regime in charge?
There's no. I've never met the new chancellor. I'm sure he's. I know Bruce Evans. I'm sure they hired a wonderful man and all that. I would say, based on what's gone on the last, is there any reason to think things will change? I haven't seen it, so I don't think. Change is tangible. It's not verbal.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And a follow-up question to that, King says, what type of AD does Vanderbilt need to be more competitive, or does it not matter without changes at Kirkland?
I can only give my philosophy. I hire people for their expertise to tell me how we should do it. I let them know I give them the resources. I line the field off. I give them what the accountability is, what we can do, what I expect. And then when you need me, come get me. I'll be involved. I don't hire people to tell them what to do. Administrators control, leaders inspire, motivate, improve, and expand.
Bobby Two Times says, who was the biggest supporter of athletics in your time at Vanderbilt?
Oh, it's a great question. I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that. I did find that people there, fans and folks, felt like they hadn't been heard and nobody cared about them. That was an overwhelming uh, feeling I got back, and they were shocked when I would return an email or say, let's meet for breakfast or talk to them because I wanted to hear what they wanted to say. That is an overwhelming thing I heard over and over and over and over again was McGugin is closed.
What does that mean?
That they didn't feel wanted, they didn't feel listened to, they didn't feel appreciated. And a lot of this is art, not science, which most people over there don't know what that even means. They just want to be heard. They care. I had visit with people say, no, I can't remember a specific thing. The guy said, here's what's going on. I said, no, that's not going on. This guy kept pushing me, and I tore him in half and said, look, I'm not going to tell you again. You're wrong. He had some wild conspiracy thing about this or that. It was really ridiculous. I said, no. You can go believe whatever you want to believe. I'm telling you, you are wrong. Do you understand me? And the guy's a good friend, nice man. He cared. But when he said something stupid, I told him, I said, no, because fan is short for fanatic, which lends itself to emotional, unknowledgeable speaking. And it took a while to get there. And every time he drifted off in that area, I said, no, that's not true. And so there's a lot of misinformation that gets repeated. And as I say, fan is short for fanatic. But you still want to listen to them. That means I'm going to do what they're going to say because I care about it. I want them. If they didn't care, they wouldn't say anything. And I always said that. And so you just have to know how to handle that.
Vandy Nash says, what forces at Vanderbilt hold back support for the athletic programs the most? And please be specific.
I'm not dodging the question. I couldn't answer that. I'm not close enough to it in terms of who's saying no or saying what. I do think there's a lack of understanding of the role and the needs. I do think that doesn't mean anybody's bad or good. And I think I think overall it's not a competitive environment on any level.
Old Jackwagon says, if you could change one or two things about the culture of the university to make a tangible difference in on-field athletic results, what would you change?
Oh, these are some really good questions. First off, it's facilities and resources. There's no doubt, and that athletics should be viewed as a shining star, not something you want to keep over in a corner. These are not athlete students; they're student athletes. You have young men and women who come there to be lawyers and doctors and whatnot. God love them. That's fine. That's their chosen fields. You have others who come there who like to play baseball, basketball, football, soccer. That's great. That's their chosen field. Support them. Help. You learn more in the athletic field you do a classroom. You get educated, but you learn more about life skills out on the ball field, how to get up when you got your ass knocked down, and how to fight back. And you got a group of coaches around there that are terrific. The body of coaches over there are terrific, and you got to give them resources. And as I said the other day, coaches, they're needy. They want things. I'd rather have them ask. I have no problem telling them, no, we're not doing that. That's BS. Here's why. But I want them asking. I don't mind that at all. I've always said I'd rather have a fan at the game yelling at me than not at home, not coming. And I think Vanderbilt's at the point now they're not coming.
Yeah, the erosion of the fan base frightens me because a lot of them are just getting old and dying off or can't come anymore. They're not building a new fan base outside of maybe baseball, where there's a pretty big younger following across the country. But I really do think they run the risk of losing so much critical mass that they just can't make it work within a few years. And I don't think the horizon for that is very far out.
I think you described it pretty accurately. And I think it's an ignored fan base. I really do. And why would you come? I mean, would you come back after that Georgia game?
Well, a lot of people didn't.
I know exactly. They didn't come to that one either.
That's true.
And, stupid me, I talk about mistakes. We did a little thing for the graduates. I think it was 19 for something, a little thing where they can get a season ticket for $19, or I can't remember exactly. Nice program for all the graduates. Well, dumb me didn't put enough guardrails in there. All they did was sell them to Georgia fans and make some money off of it. And it shows the entrepreneurial spirits of the Vanderbilt graduates and students, but shows my dumbness that I didn't guardrail enough. That wasn't the intent of doing that. And that's fine. You live and learn. So mistakes were made, but that's all that did. And so they ought to all thank me for my stupidity, I guess. But, you try. But it's like the Tennessee basketball game. We did a salute to service that game, probably forfeited some revenue. I worked hard to try to keep Orange out because I don't want visiting fans and taking over my house. And it met some resistance and people were skeptical. And I had to tell them, if it doesn't work, it's on me. Don't worry about it. And this marketing community, they all did a spectacular job, and we did the best we could. But you got to try. I'm not going to sit there and let it happen time after time after time after time and not try to stop it. That ain't who I am.
Old Jackwagon has a follow-up. Said, is Vanderbilt realistically capable of being consistently competitive in the SEC without major changes occurring at the university?
I don't think so. Or policies changing. Policies, I'm not saying, the outlook has to change in terms of how you do it. And, you are what your record says you are. You can't hide from it. So there's no two ways about it.
If you were AD today and you could control anything you'd want to do, what would you do?
Oh, boy, it's such a good question. I would want total control to do it and fix it the way as I see it, with the input of the university and my superiors, and not interference. And the reason I say that is I'm completely confident I know more about it than they do in this area. I'm not talking about how you do it academically. I couldn't have got in Vanderbilt. Only reason I was there, I got the keys to the back door from Malcolm. My grades wouldn't have got me in there. But I'm telling you, I'm totally confident in my intelligence to make it work.
Vandy Fan 96 says, who should Vanderbilt fans target for voicing opinions of positive change? What would you recommend fans do to make their voices heard to that entity?
Boy, that's a great question. I don't, it's such a good question. An old saying, you got to prove it to me, trust but verify. Verbal will do nothing. It's almost where you just got to decide, if you're going to go to a game, you're going to buy a ticket, don't go expecting changes. And I would say I wouldn't buy a ticket, wouldn't go, but I'm not sure that's brought any change, because not many people are doing that anyway. So I'm a little different than some. People call some people fair weather fans. I'm not following losing. I ain't doing it. I don't do it. You got to earn my fandom. If a team, I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm loyal, I'm not jumping off the bandwagon. I don't follow losers. I don't follow, you got to win. That's why I'm attracted to the excellence of Tim Corbin, Bill Belichick, the Alabama football. It's so well run the way they do things. And I like to be around that environment. I'm not following Rutgers football. There's nothing that's got my attention. I'm not following teams that don't do it right. I have no desire, because I want to learn. I'm intellectually curious.
Have you figured out who they do listen to regarding sports?
No, I couldn't answer that.
One Star Bandit says, can you comment on Vandy Sports' report of the demise of Turner as the AD and all the work in the background?
Not anything more than I've done now. I think once there was a change in leadership, things changed, and all of a sudden investment became spending, and it was just, all the momentum probably stopped. I don't think that's hard to figure out. But I'll say this: if you're doing things the same way you've been done them, the results aren't going to change. That should not be hard for people to understand. And I love the Vanderbilt fans; they deserve a winner. But one, this is not criticism. I hope it doesn't sound like that. They're hanging everything they have on hope. Hope is not a strategy. I go back. The standards are so low. You could walk under them with an Abraham Lincoln top hat on. And happy to beat Tennessee a few years. Great. Should be thrilled. They were the last place team in the league. Enjoy it. You got to beat Georgia and Florida. Are you playing for first place, or are you content to be last? And when does losing stop bothering you?
What I don't understand is how there's any portion of the fan base left that will trust them. Because the thing I say is don't look at what they say, follow what they do. They will not commit to anything. I don't understand how there's, and I think most people don't anymore, but I don't understand how there's any portion left that has any trust in them.
My own work philosophy has never been, and I've told people at the NBA when they would say this in meetings, say, don't ever say it to them again. I never say, trust me. I will say this, listen, you hold me, I don't say hold me accountable, but I say, you hold me to what I say I'm going to do. And I hope I never lose your trust because I'm going to do the best I can. I'm not asking for blind trust, but verify, you know, and I'll say it again, change is tangible. It's not verbal. It's got, I'm a big game hunter. I like to go after big things, and uh, I set my goals high, and I believe in excellence. I believe in hard work. I believe in honesty. I've said all along, all I wanted, and I told Malcolm this, is to make the Vanderbilt athletic department as a shining star as everything else is over there. Same sophistication, resources, pride. It's no different, and I think it is right now.
Why do you think Candace won't commit to anything publicly or answer questions of any significance?
Well, I can't answer that other than communications has been taken out of the athletic department, and she works for Vanderbilt, so I assume that's why it is. I think it's unfair to criticize her for that. She's got to do what her bosses want, and that's what her bosses want. Somebody will do it. That somebody will. I don't want to say rock the boat, but somebody is in line with their philosophy, and that's fine. I don't. If anybody gets upset over what I'm saying, and that right there's your problem. They're too thin-skinned, they don't know what's going on. That's the philosophy they have, and that's fine. I got news for you. Alabama didn't do that. Nick Saban's not worried about doing that. Nate Oates is not worried about doing that because you in my mind, you hire good people, let them do their job. I'll say it again: administrators control, leaders lead, motivate, inspire, set boundaries, hold accountability. And it's like Michael Jordan says, leadership is hard. Winning's hard. You can't be afraid. I'm not talking about being disrespectful to anybody. I'm not. You set high standards and you don't ask them to do something you wouldn't do. There were people over there that were flourishing, and there was others that were, as I say, were out around looking for support, not illumination.
One Star Bandit says, since leaving, have you heard from other people about the Vanderbilt AD, the role, the perception, and from whom?
No, until you called me, what was it, a week and a half ago or something, I've been completely off the grid. Like I said, I hadn't had a haircut since February. I did shave after 2 months. As I said, I looked like Saddam Hussein and Unabomber, and now going through a little my back problem. So I had to, and for the context of this call, I asked you to send me everything that's been written so I could catch up. So I've been out of it. I've heard from some folks, and some have asked me to help, kind of help them get a job and things like that. But in terms of any other communication, no.
Door King says, were you or Malcolm deceived when you took positions at Vanderbilt?
I can't speak for him. I can't. All I did was, in my job with him as a special advisor, he gives me a lot of rope, just turns me loose. Probably I can handle it. Other people didn't understand what my role was, but that's not. They shouldn't be worried about that. So I cannot speak to that on his behalf.
Baseball Bros said, did you feel there was an undertone to the department and in Kirkland to backstab Malcolm Turner and get him fired?
No, I don't. I don't think anybody was, doing those things, but I do think people resisted change, and at some point they got the support they wanted.
Bobby two times says, was the hire of Stackhouse a favor for Turner getting the Vanderbilt job?
Absolutely not. No, nothing against Bobby, whoever has, but absolutely not. I don't mean this critical. It's a ridiculous question, but no.
Bobby says, what's your perspective of Vanderbilt now that you've left? I guess you've answered that, but if you've got anything left to be said, I guess that's a good time to answer it.
I think there's a lack of self-awareness of what it is. You can't sit around and tell everybody how good you are when no one else is saying that. So uh, I think there's, and this didn't start 2 weeks ago. I mean, let's face it, we're talking 30 years. So that's why I don't think there's an awareness of how they're perceived outside their own walls.
Tommy, I think that's it. Did you have any other questions or any other topics that need to be addressed that we didn't get into today?
No, I'm just trying to be frank and candid. I enjoyed the fans there. I think they deserve a winner. I hope they do well. I don't have any ill will about anything. I really don't, other than the fact I'm get out of this hospital and get healthy. But I hope they win every game. I do think, if I said, I think there's some discipline, and I think you need more competitiveness there. And there's a different way of doing things that a lot of people there haven't seen, and they just don't know it. So I really do believe if we'd been given a lot of time, I believe we could have done it. As a matter of fact, I'm completely confident.
Hey, Tommy, thanks for joining me today. I wish you the best in your recovery. We appreciate all that you have done for the podcast, and be safe as you get released back out in the wild, I guess.
Thank you very much. And I'll say this. When I was at Vanderbilt, I said this the other day, I read everything, so I wanted to keep up. So I like to know what's going on. And when I'm a coach, I want to know who's recruiting who. I was maniacal about that. Your sources and your background work was really good. And I used to even talk to Alan George, who I really like and is a good guy and does a great job. I said, who are his sources? He's too close to home. But I never said they were inaccurate. I never talked. I think finally I told Alan, get me on Chris's podcast. I'm going to talk to him. So I think sometimes this shoot the messenger is not right. If you say something I don't think's accurate, I would have called you up. But I never called you.
Tommy, appreciate you joining us today, and thanks again for all you've done.
Thank you. Everybody have a good day. Bye.
He's Tommy Smith. I'm Chris Lee, host of the Vandy.